This is the story, at least part of the story, of one-time St. Joseph police detective Scott Coates, a 20-year law enforcement veteran who describes himself as
just a guy. I live a pretty mundane, I guess a lot of people would consider it mundane, but I enjoy it. Like I said, my time that I spend is with my family. I'm a family guy.
But for some who worked closely with him during his time as a detective, he's described as much more, setting the bar high for himself and raising the bar for his fellow detectives.
One of the best detectives that I've ever had the privilege to work with.
But Scott Coates' storied career would come to an end amid allegations of corruption, a federal investigation lasting years and ultimately spelling the end to his life as a police investigator. And in the end, that investigation wouldn't turn up evidence of corruption. In fact, what led to the veteran detective handing over his badge would be something completely different. A gun. Similar to this one that federal prosecutors say Scott Coates allowed to be released from police evidence into the hands of a man they say shouldn't have had it. And while the gun is definitely a major player in this story, it's only a piece of the story. That seems to get more complicated as it unfolds. Way back in 2007, a man named Corey Barr was involved in a shootout. His gun, a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson, was taken by police, and Barr was questioned by Scott Coates about the incident, which was later ruled self-defense. Through a series of unlikely events that included that gun sitting unbooked in a drawer of Coates' desk for nearly 2 years, the gun did eventually get booked into evidence. And when Corey Barr requested it be returned to him in 2010, roughly 3 years after it was first taken by police, the gun was released to him by an evidence technician. Scott Coates' former supervisor, Curtis Howard.
The guy got his gun back because he came to the police station and he wanted it. I didn't want to give it to him. And so, just because I didn't want to give it to him doesn't mean, we keep it. If legally he could have the gun, then he gets the gun. And so, read the criminal history, couldn't find any reason to keep it. So, it was eventually given back to him. Later on, we find out, the guy did have a conviction that would have prevented him from getting that gun. It'd have been nice if that documentation would have been in the file. If someone knew that, write it down, put it in the file. But it wasn't there.
That would ultimately be the thing on which federal prosecutors would base their case against Scott Coates. But it didn't start with that gun.
When I first learned of it in 2011, that was a federal investigation.
Now retired, Curtis Howard says in September of 2011, he was informed Coates was being investigated for showing favoritism and possibly taking bribes.
Honestly, I wasn't worried about it because I really felt like if somebody takes that much time to investigate, they're going to figure it out and know that he's not done anything wrong.
Howard says he was told little about the investigation and heard even less as the months went on. Scott Coates, on the other hand, says he heard nothing and had no reason to believe anything was wrong until he received a phone call from a man he'd come in contact with in the past during a shooting investigation.
Basically, at the end of those phone calls, I felt that I was being set up.
What was the meaning of that phone call? And what role would it play in the story yet to unfold?